Well, first of all, let me welcome your teachers and my colleagues. And let's hope they will enjoy seeing our lesson today. As you can already see, we have chosen for our class, a class of culture and civilization. That is a class also intended for our project, Architeaching. So we have chosen a theme, which is architecture. I have also chosen for you some words connected to architecture. Some of the most usual words that you can see on the whiteboard, not blackboard, that maybe will help you in your presentations today. Okay, let's start with a definition given to architecture. And I would like you to think what architecture means to you. Think, but not too long, please. I suppose you haven't looked up the word in the dictionary, so maybe you can imagine something about this term, architecture. What does it mean to you? What do you think of when you say architecture? Patricia, what do you think of?
Well, I think the practice of drawing buildings or
yes,
designing them.
Of course. I think this is the first thing that comes to your mind. What else? What else?
Not only buildings, just the furniture.
Yes, some details connected to buildings. The art of decorating, designing interiors. Yeah, that's right. Something else? Maybe you have some good ideas. Who knows? Andrei?
Well, I think architecture refers in special to many plans about high constructions.
Yes.
Or something else. I don't know.
So maybe you can think of any structure, of organizing any structure, not only referring to buildings, constructions. Well, let me give you the first definition I found in the dictionary. Architecture is the science and art of designing and constructing buildings or other man-made structures. So any man-made structure can be the object of architecture. The second definition I found, the science and art of organizing and constructing any space necessary for human life and activity. The third definition, the style and distinctive character of a construction. So when we say architecture, we don't think only of building something, but we think of the style and the distinctive character. The fourth definition, the internal structure, composition of anything. For example, computer architecture, the way a computer is made. We call this computer architecture. And the fifth definition, the structure of any work of art, but especially of a literary work. So we often speak in literature of the architecture of a literary work. Okay. Let's go now further. You have prepared for today some presentations. I allowed you to choose any building you liked, that you found special, and you will see images And while you see the image, you will also hear a very short presentation, because we don't have time, unfortunately, we don't have time to go deeper into the problem. Maybe in some next classes of culture and civilization. But let's start now by asking you to choose between what and what? Architecture and what?
Arts.
Arts. Okay. He is a very good, he's very talented for drawing.
Thank you.
And graffiti. Yes. Somebody else who intends to study architecture? Oh no. Let's start by showing some of Răzvan's drawings. It is his work. And Roberto will help him present the drawings.
A design that is specific to this area is this perspective projection of a house entrance with 6 steps, round supporting columns, and a big arc for the house entrance.
Arch. Pay attention. Arch.
For the house entrance.
Yes. The next 5 images, also Răzvan's drawings.
These designs are technical designs, specifically axonometric and perspective projections that treat different areas of architecture that help in the building of a house.
Are they your own conception?
Yes.
Exclusively yours? Where have you presented these drawings? Can I ask you? Turn please. Don't show your back.
This one is a house in modern style. This style is defined by rejection of ornamental elements and simplified forms through the elimination of unimportant details.
Can I ask you how you find this drawing, this kind of building?
Interesting.
Stefania? Interesting. Give me some words. Characterize it. So, Stefania says interesting.
Attractive.
What else? Adrian?
Attractive.
Attractive. Expensive. Yes. Did you intend it to be expensive?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, something else.
Uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable?
On the outside. It has many sharp edges.
Well, anyway, it looks original. We must admit. Okay, let's continue.
The last house is a traditional style house. Being a traditional house from Bukovina, roof shingles and small windows with thick frames are present, with the porch supported on a stone structure, and also a cellar entrance in front of the house, giving it a nice look.
For some words, for example, like shingle in his presentation, you can take a look on the whiteboard. Okay, maybe they will help you understand better. Is that all, Răzvan?
Yes.
You tell us, you are the master of the drawings. Okay. Will he be a successful architect?
Yes.
Yes? We are quite sure. Okay, let's continue with our presentation. Who's the first? Laura?
The Rainbow Bridge.
Yes.
It is a suspended bridge located in the northern area of Tokyo. It is located also between Shibaura Pier and the Odaiba waterfront in Minato, Tokyo, Japan.
So Japan.
Japan.
Okay.
Construction started in 1987 and was completed in 1993. The bridge is 798 meters, officially called the Shuto Expressway, number 11. The name Rainbow Bridge was given by the public.
So relatively brand new.
The towers supporting the bridge are white in color, designed to harmonize with the skyline of central Tokyo. There are lamps placed on the wires supporting the bridge, which are illuminated in 3 different colors: red, green, and blue.
That's why rainbow, I suppose.
Yes.
Because of the lights, the color of the lights.
The bridge has 2 separate walkways on the north and south sides of the lower deck. The north side offers a view of the Tokyo Tower, while the south side offers a view of Tokyo Bay and occasionally Mount Fuji, if it's clear.
Do you like Japan?
Yes, I do.
A lot. Okay. The next one, please.
The next one is mine.
Yes.
The Sultan Ahmed Mosque is a mosque that is found in Istanbul. The mosque is popularly known as the Blue Mosque for the blue tiles during the walls of its interior.
Okay, blue mosque. Okay.
It was built between 1609 and 1616 during the rule of Ahmed I. Like many other mosques, it also comprised a tomb of the founder, a madrash, and a hospice. While still used as a mosque, the Sultan Ahmed Mosque had also become a popular tourist attraction.
Also become, yes.
The central hexagonal fountain is rather small. Fountain is rather small in contrast with the dimension of the courtyard. The monumental but narrow gateway go-to courtyard stand out architecturally from the arcade. Its semi-dome has a fine stalactite structure crowned by a small reed done on the tolobate. A heavy iron chain hangs in the upper part of the court entrance on the western side. Only the Sultan was allowed to enter the court of the mosque on horseback. The chain was put there so that the Sultan had to lower his head every time he entered the court in order not to get hit. This was done as a symbolic gesture to ensure the humility, smallness of the ruler in face of the divine.
The next.
Yes,
The Sydney Opera House. I chose to talk about the Sydney Opera House because I think it's one of the world's greatest buildings and I'd like to be able to visit it one day. The Sydney Opera House is a multi-venue performing arts centre in the Australian city of Sydney. It was conceived and largely built by Danish architect Jorn Atzen, finally opening in 1973 after a long gestation, starting with his competition-winning design in 1957. Atzen received the Pritzker Prize, architecture's highest honor, in 2003. The Opera House was formally opened by Queen Elizabeth II on October 20th, 1973. The opening was televised and included fireworks and a performance of Beethoven's Symphony No. 9. The Sydney Opera House has about 1,000 rooms, including 5 theatres, 5 rehearsal studios, 2 main halls, 4 restaurants, 6 bars and numerous souvenir shops. The roofs of the house are constructed of glazed white granite tiles imported from Sweden. Despite their self-cleaning nature, they are still subject to periodic maintenance and replacement. The house interior is composed of pink granite mined from Tarana and wooden brush box plywood supplied from northern New South Wales.
Plywood meaning? Placage.
The 5 constituent theatres of the Sydney Opera House are the Concert Hall, the Opera Theatre, the Drama Theatre, the Playhouse and the Studio Theatre. The smallest building is home to the Benelong restaurant. The Concert Hall contains the Sydney Opera House Grand Organ, the largest mechanical trucker action organ in the world, with over 10,000 pipes. The theatres are housed in a series of large shells conceived by dissecting a hemisphere. The Concert Hall and Opera Theatre are contained in the largest shells, and the other theatres are located on the sides of the shells. Large free public performances have also often been staged in front of the monumental steps that lead up to the base of the main set of shells. A much smaller set of shells, set to one side of the monumental steps, houses one of the formal dining restaurants.
Okay, easily recognizable because of these shells. They are shells. Want to imitate shells. Okay. The next one.
The next one is mine, Schönbrunn Palace. Schönbrunn Palace, together with its ancillary buildings and extensive park, is by virtue of its long and colorful history one of the most important cultural monuments in Austria. Scheduled as a list monument, the whole ensemble, including the palace, the park, and not at least the oldest zoo in the world, was placed on the UNESCO World Cultural Heritage List in 1996. The palace lies about 6 kilometers from the center of Vienna, but it's easily reached by the underground. The whole area, including the expansive garden Schönbrunn, occupies about 176 hectares or 435 acres, and you have to set aside at least a half a day for a visit to Schönbrunn's magnificent palace and garden. The central palace is 175 meters wide and has a symmetrical Baroque facade. All buildings were painted in a typical yellow pattern, a combination that was soon copied by many residences around the country. The Rococo style interior of the Schönbrunn apartments is much more luxurious than the rather sober apartments in the Hofburg.
Very beautiful gardens. Very beautiful gardens. The next.
Me. I will present the Eiffel Tower.
Eiffel Tower, yes.
The Eiffel Tower is an iron tower located on the Champ de Mars in Paris. Built in 1889, it has become a global icon of France and one of the most recognizable structures in the world.
I think anybody can recognize the Eiffel Tower, yes.
Named after its designer, engineer Gustave Eiffel, the tower was built as the entrance arch to the 1889 World's Fair. The structure was built between 1887 and 1889 as the entrance for the Exposition Universelle, a World's Fair marking the centennial celebration of the French Revolution. 300 workers joined the pieces of iron. The risk of accident was great, as unlike modern skyscrapers, the tower is an open frame without any intermediate floors except the two platforms. However, because Eiffel took safety precautions, only one man died. The tower was inaugurated on the 31st of March 1889 and opened on the 6th of May. The tower was much criticized by the public when it was built, with many calling it an eyesore. Newspapers of the day were filled with angry letters from the arts community in Paris. In a publication of the time, the construction was explicitly called odious, but it has been ever since the symbol of Paris.
So they called it odious. Why? Why do you think so?
The public...
Is it odious?
No, it is not.
It is not, but they found it so. Why do you think?
Because the public believed that was an eyesore because it was too big, too high.
Maybe too big, too high. Maybe because it was made of iron.
A
strange
shape.
color.
Unusual shape.
Yes, unusual shape. Maybe. Maybe these were serious reasons for calling it ugly, very ugly. But it seems fair to me to mention the name of a Romanian engineer who participated in building this tower, Gheorghe Pănculescu. Do you know anything about him?
He projected the shape and the materials.
Yes, you know, Gustave Eiffel came to Valerii de Munte to talk, especially to talk to Gheorghe Pănculescu, because he was a great specialist in assembling the parts of iron. Yes, he was just working for railroads. And Gustave Eiffel came here especially to talk to him about this.
And
the idea of assembling those steel parts belonged to Gheorghe Pănculescu. And the material of the tower was made where?
In Romania.
Reșița. Okay.
The next one is mine.
Okay,
Burj
yours.
Khalifa lifts the world's head proudly skywards, surprising limits and expectation, rising gracefully from the desert and honoring Dubai with a glove.
Dubai,
of course. Burj Khalifa is an unprecedented example of international cooperation, symbolic beacon of progress, and an emblem of the new dynamic
emblem.
of the new dynamic and prosperous Middle East. Excavation work began for Burj Khalifa in January 2004 and it's over on January 2010 with the official launch ceremony. Total project cost were $1.4 billion. The architecture features a triple-lobed footprint, an abstraction of the Hymenocaulis flower. The tower is composed of 3 elements arranged around the central core. Burj Khalifa is evocated of the Union domes prevalent in Islamic architecture. Over 3,000 cladding specialists from China were brought in for cladding work on the tower. Soaring is above downtown Dubai, the iconic Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest building, exactly 828 meters. Armani Hotel Dubai is the world's first hotel designed and developed by Giorgio Armani.
Oh, something to remember.
Reflected the pure elegance, simplicity and sophisticated comfort that define Armani's signature style. The hotel is the realization of the designer's long-held dream to bring his sophisticated style to life in the most complete way of offer his customer a stay with Armani experience. Every detail in the hotels bears the Armani signature, beginning with the warm Italian style hospitality and moving to each element of the design from the Hermosa stone floors to the zebra wood panels, bespoke furnishing and personally designed hotel amenities.
Well, if I understood well, Armani designed the interior of the building, not the building itself.
No.
Okay. Yeah, something very interesting.
That's mine. The present term is the television tower in the city center of Berlin, Germany. Close to Alexanderplatz and part of the world federation of great towers, the tower was constructed between 1965 and 1969 by the former German Democratic Republic administration, who intended it as a symbol of Berlin. With its height of 368 meters, it is the tallest structure in Germany, and it is the 4th tallest freestanding structure in Europe after Moscow's Ostakio Tower, the Kiev TV Tower and the Riga Radio. There is a visitor platform and...
So the Russians are the first, as you can see. Okay.
There is a visitor's platform and a revolving restaurant in the middle of the sphere that rotates once every 30 minutes. Inside the shaft there are 2 lifts that shuttle visitors up to the sphere of the tower within 40 seconds.
So an entertainment place for the Germans, and not only, I suppose. Let's go far, far to South America.
Machu Picchu. It is situated on a mountain ridge above the Urubamba Valley in Peru. Most archaeologists believe that Machu Picchu was built as an estate for the Inca Emperor Pachacuti. The Incans started building it around 1400 AD, but abandoned it as an official site for the Inca rulers a century later, at the time of the Spanish conquest. By 1976, 30% of Machu Picchu had been restored. The restoration work continues to this day. The ruins of Machu Picchu are divided into 2 main sections known as the urban and agriculture sectors, divided by a wall. The central buildings of Machu Picchu use the classical Inca architectural style of polished dry stone walls of regular shape. The Incas were masters of this technique called ashlar, in which blocks of stone are cut to fit together tightly without mortar. Many junctions in the central city are so perfect that it is said not even a blade of glass fits between the stones. As part of the road system, the Incas built a road to the Machu Picchu region. Today, tens of thousands of tourists walk the Inca Trail to visit Machu Picchu each year.
Would you like to go there?
Yes, of course.
Maybe you will someday. I would invite you to try ranking these images, these buildings. That is to think which one you like best. Which is the second, maybe the third. Okay, think about it.
The Shard of Glass, previously known as London Bridge Tower, is located on Southwark in London. Construction started in March 2009 and the estimate completion is on 2012. The main constructor is Mace and the architect is Renzo Piano. When it is completed...
So, an Italian?
Yes.
Okay. Italians are very good architects.
When it is completed in 2012, it will be the highest building in the European Union. The building was designed with an irregular triangular shape from the base to the top and will be clad entirely in glass. The architect proposed the use of glass so that the appearance of the building will change according to the seasons and weather.
A very interesting idea.
Yeah, the building was designed to maintain stability under the most dangerous conditions.
This is the Museum of Modern Art.
Museum.
Is an art museum in Midtown Manhattan in New York City on 53rd Street between 5th and 6th Avenue. It has been important in developing and collecting modernist art and is often identified as the most influential museum of modern art in the world. The idea of the Museum of Modern Art was developed in 1928 primarily by Elvin Aldrich Rockefeller, wife of John D. Rockefeller Jr., and two of her friends, Lily P. Bliss and Mary Queen Sullivan. They became known variously as the ladies, the daring ladies, and the adamantium ladies.
Guggenheim opened museums, let's say, all over the world.
Buckingham Palace. Buckingham Palace is the London home and primary residence of the British monarchy. Located in the city of Westminster, the palace is a setting for state occasion and royal hospitality.
And current residence of the British monarch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Buckingham Palace was started in 1703 but the large renovation and enlargements that make up the building that we know today were designed by John Nash and Edward Bloor. The right wing was redesigned in 1912 by Sir Ashton Webb, but still maintains the neoclassical style. The placement of the building and the surrounding urban countryside are an important part of the 5th and 9th century British design. The setting is romantic. The palace sits next to a river with landscaping that is remarkably rural for the downtown setting.
Yes, what is Buckingham famous for nowadays? Also famous for the royal residence and what else? Everybody, every tourist in London goes to Buckingham Palace to see what? To see what? The changing of the guard.
Yeah.
The changing of the guard. Okay.
Next is mine. Brandenburg Gate is a former city gate and one of the most well-known landmarks of Berlin and Germany. It is located west of the city center and is the only remaining gate of a series through which Berlin was once entered. The gate was designed by Karl Gotthard Langhans, the current superintendent of buildings from 1788 to 1791 in the classicist style. Based on the Propylaea, the gateway to the Acropolis in Athens, the Brandenburg Gate was the first Greek revival neoclassical structure in Berlin. It consists of 12 Doric columns, 6 on each side, creating 5 portals. The quadriga, a statue consisting of the goddess of peace, driving a 4-horse triumphal chariot, is mounted above the gate, which is flanked by 2 smaller buildings. In similar style, served as gatehouses. The gate was the first Athens on the River Spree by architect Karl Gotthard von Langhans. The capital quadriga was sculpted by Johann Gottfried Schadow. But interesting thing, the first Brandenburg Gate was built in 1734 when a perimeter wall was constructed around the edge of the city. this wall, called the Customs and Excise Wall, was not for defensive purposes, but for controlling the flow of people and goods to and from the city.
And maybe asking for money.
For money,
Yeah.
of course. The gate was heavily damaged during the Second World War and partially destroyed during the final battle for Berlin, but was fully restored to 2002 by the Berlin Monument Conservation Foundation. The Brandenburg Gate's design has remained essentially unchanged since completion, even as it has played different political roles in German history, and now it stands as a symbol of the reunification of the two sides of this great city, East and West Germany.
Yes. It was obviously inspired by Greek monuments. Obviously.
I'll talk about Westminster Abbey. Westminster Abbey is the last church in the Gothic style with Benedictine planning in London, England.
Yes, when we talk about Gothic style in architecture in England, we inevitably think of and bring into discussion Westminster Abbey.
Edward the Confessor built an abbey here in 1050 AD. And in the Romanesque time. By 1245, however, that all Romanesque church seemed old-fashioned, and so Henry III decided to tear it down and build a new church in the Gothic style. It is in the late Gothic style, which is much more vertical. The doors of Westminster Abbey are relatively plain, with beautiful lacy garlands, but no statues, they don't tell a story. Inside, the main nave of Westminster Abbey rises in 3 stories, one big point in the Gothic arch at the bottom, then a blind false gallery, and above that a big glass window to let in the light. Thin colonnades attached to the wall rise straight up from the floor to the ceiling to make it seem as high as possible, as if the whole building were soaring up to the sky. The architect inspired from the French cathedrals. Like this, the Westminster Abbey has round apse with radiating chapels, rose windows, and flying buttresses. The vaults are fancy ones with a lot of unnecessary ribs just to look more beautiful.
Buttress, you can see here. Or contrafort buttress, or flying buttress. Something that balances a wall, a building, and so on. What is the cathedral famous for? What happens here? This is very important. You should have mentioned. This is the coronation place for the British monarchs. The obligatory coronation place. We have that oaken chair where the monarch sits after coronation.
A lot of important heads of state.
It is near what? So Westminster Abbey, the Palace of Westminster, which is the Palace of Parliament.
Yes. From the outside of the church, we can see how the builders held up a heavy stone roof when the walls had such big windows in them by using flying buttresses. At the bottom end of these, they connect to regular non-flying buttresses, which are also hold up the roof. And that's all.
The Robert Building. It is located in the southern business district of Bangkok, houses United Overseas Bank's Bangkok headquarters. It was designed for the Bank of Asia by Sumet Jumsek to reflect the computerization of banking. Its architecture is a reaction against the neoclassical and high-tech postmodern architecture. The building features, such as progressive receding walls, antennas and eyes, contribute to its robotic appearance. Completed in 1986, the building is one of the last examples of modern architecture in Bangkok.
Guggenheim Museum Bilbao is a museum
So Guggenheim Museum again, but this time
Spain. Is a museum of modern and contemporary art designed by Canadian-American architect Frank Gehry and located in Bilbao, Spain. The museum features permanent and visiting exhibits of works by Spanish and international artists. One of the most admired works of contemporary architecture, the building has been hailed
as a signal moment in the architectural culture because it represents one of those rare moments when critics, academics, and the general public were all completely united about something. The museum was the building most frequently named as one of the most important works completed since 1980 in the 2010 World Architecture Survey among architecture experts.
Yeah, very beautiful building. Very modern and strange. I find it strange.
How to explain that a 5 feet tall man weighing 100 pounds built an elaborate garden using bits of rock, each weighing a ton? The construction of Coral Castle, or as it is named by its builder, Coral Castle, or as it is named by Edlis Kalkin, the last monument, began in 1923 after he was refused by his fiancée just a few days before their wedding.
Something very sad.
He loved her so much that he dedicated all his life to finish the monument. Unfortunately, he didn't make it, but the construction was continued after he died.
Yes.
This romantic tale is not the main reason for people's confusion, because he was only educated up to 4th grade, and he didn't have many knowledges of architecture of any kind.
There is also a monument somewhere in the world that was built out of great love. Taj Mahal. Okay. Taj Mahal.
And an engineer calls that even Albert Einstein was not able to understand how he was able to work on this monument.
Einstein?
Yes.
If he didn't understand, how could we?
The Leaning Tower of Pisa, or simply the Tower of Pisa, is the tower of the cathedral of the Italian city of Pisa. It is situated behind the cathedral and is the third oldest structure in the Pisa's Cathedral Square after the cathedral and the baptistry. The height of the tower is 55 meters. The tower began to sink after the construction had progressed to the second floor in 1178. This was due to a mere 3-meter foundation set in a weak and stable subsoil, a design that was flawed from the beginning. Construction was subsequently halted for almost a century because the Republic of Pisa was almost continually engaged in battles with Genoa, Lucca and Florence. This allowed time for the underlying soil to settle. Otherwise, the tower would almost certainly have toppled. On January 7, 1990, after over 2 decades of stabilization studies, the tower was closed to the public. The bells were removed to relieve some weight, and cables were twisted around the 3rd level and anchored several hundred meters away. Apartments and houses in the path of the tower were vacated for safety. The final solution to prevent the collapse of the tower was to slightly straighten the tower to a safer angle. In May 2008, after the removal of another 70 metric tons of ground, engineers announced that the tower had been stabilized such that it had stopped moving for the first time in its history. They stated it would be stable for at least 200 years.
So this tower is in fact the bell tower of the cathedral.
Yes.
Am I right? Okay. You know, some say that it was built like this purposely.
Yes.
And but we can't know. Who knows? Who knows? We'll have to study. And it still is not an accident that this is what I mean.
Notre Dame de Paris is a Gothic Catholic cathedral on the eastern
Catholic
cathedral of the eastern half of the Ile de la Cité in the 4th arrondissement of Paris, France. It is the cathedral of the Catholic Archdiocese of Paris.
Archbishop of Paris.
That is, it is the church that contains the cathedral of the Archbishop of Paris.
What is the cathedral? It is the what gives the name of a cathedral. What is it? Cathedra or throne. Or throne. A bigger chair that gives the name. This is what makes the difference between a church and a cathedral. This throne, called cathedral.
Currently under Bantra. Its construction began in 1163. Notre Dame de Paris, widely considered one of the finest examples of French Gothic architecture in France and in Europe, and the naturalism of its sculptures on stained glass are in contrast with earlier Romanesque architecture. Notre Dame de Paris was among the first buildings in the world to use the flying buttresses. The building was not originally designed to include the flying buttresses around the chair and snake. After the construction began and the spinal walls grew ever higher, stress fractures began to occur as the walls pushed outward. In response, the cathedral's architects built support around the outside walls, and later addition continued the pattern. The cathedral was essentially complete by 1345.
Who is the present Archbishop?
André Bantra.
André Bantra. Oui, oui.
Petronas Towers. The Petronas Towers, Malai, Menera Petronas.
Malaysia. Malaysia.
Yes. Menora Petronas, also known as the Petronas Twin Towers or Menera Verkenbar Petronas in Malaysia, are skyscrapers and twin towers in Kuala Lumpur. According to an official definition and ranking, they were the tallest twin buildings in the world from 1998 to 2004 until supposed by Taipei 101.
As you can see, this changes very quickly. The first one is, and the next year, the first one is another, and so on.
But remain the tallest twin buildings in the world.
Yes, among the tallest in the world.
The building is the landmark of Kuala Lumpur.
Admire the twins.
The British Museum is one of London's top attractions with a mission to illuminate the history of culture for present and future generation. Was established in 1753 and the first opened to the public on 15 January 1759. There are world-class collections from civilization across the globe, with particularly popular galleries devoted to the Assyrians, the Egyptians, and the ancient Greeks. Its collection, which number more than 7 million objects, are amongst the largest and more comprehensive in the world, and originate from all continents.
Okay, the Egyptian collection is the most famous.
Yes, yes. Yeah. The museum great card designed by Norman Foster is a glass cover atrium which returns to public view the museum long neglected central courtyard. Airy, spacious, and an excellent place to rest your legs between trips to the different galleries. It has transformed the famous museum with priceless sculptures decorating the light forecourt and the two monumental staircase wrapping the drum. The collection exhibited by geographic area. Highlights include one of Europe's finest and more comprehensive collection of Japanese archaeology, sculpture and decorative arts, one of the finest collection of Chinese antiquities in the West, paintings and porcelain from the Neolithic period to the modern day, and the largest and most comprehensive collection of ancient Egyptian, materials including the collection
of
mummies and coffins.
Mummies. Okay, we have, I think we have 8 more images. Stay put, please. Don't move. Have you thought of ranking what you have seen? Which one did you like best? Can you tell me? We will continue presenting the buildings you have chosen during the future classes. But which one did you like best? Maybe it's difficult to choose because we have old buildings and very new buildings, and maybe we should divide them into 2 categories. But anyway, try to choose. Has anyone chosen? Laura? Eiffel Tower? Did you like it best?
Yes.
Okay, if you say so. Somebody else?
Like Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao.
Yeah.
I like Burj Khalifa.
Burj Khalifa. Well, Dubai has a lot of buildings to talk about. That 7-star hotel, you know. Nicola. Westminster Abbey? Best. Well, somebody else?
Sydney Opera.
What?
The Sydney
Opera. Okay, thank you for participating in our lesson. And we'll continue talking about architecture in the future.